Now, and trauma paints a direct line to mental health illness, and we will look a little bit more about this in the next slide. Past trauma is prominently mentioned as the reason that people experience serious mental health conditions today. Racism, for example, is used the top of the iceberg. Like, for example, slavery was real. The mid-Atlantic trade, pretty much trading black people the same way that today we can trade pork and cows. Now, losses, separation, and then the humane train that happened here. And again, you're property, you're not a human being. But wait a minute, all men were created equal. Wow, what a wonderful, what a wonderful choice of words. All men were created equal. But the same person that wrote that statement actually was having sex with his slave. That was a minor, but for the standards of those days, was not really like an issue. And actually have like many kids with that slave, and many of those kids actually didn't get the freedom status until much later, and some of them don't even achieve that. And interesting, the same person that said all men were created equal has a family mausoleum where pretty much everybody from his descendants can actually get buried in that land. Now, for the Afro descendants of the same line, it was a right that was just recently granted. So, but all men were created equal. So if you think about a family, how in one family can be different trauma based on your race. The white children in the family have a different life than the black children in the family. Everyday people of color experience suitable traumas, and it's a reality. It's a fact that pretty much not too many people will talk about, and the whole idea of colorism is real. People who avoid them and their neighbors out of ignorance and fear. Banks, credit companies may not really lend that easily money to minorities for many reasons. You are a higher risk if I lend you money, so for you to start a business or start a practice or start whatever you want to start. And when we get the rates, many times it's actually a higher rate. Well, but what happened with the fair banking? Yeah, it's a reality, but also the system has their own loopholes. Now it's important to realize this. So, mass incarcerations of their peers. So, New Jersey, there was Chris Christie, the jail reform. The jail reform pretty much the black community didn't get benefit from the jail reform at the number that we were thinking. And many black folks are incarcerated or were incarcerated or are not even right now to adopt or being a kinship for their grandkids because of charges from the 80s and 90s regarding like a possession of 1 joint of marijuana. So back in the 80s and 90s, Newark, Jersey City, Camden, Patterson were dealing with a drugs epidemic. What was the response back then? Criminalization. Early 2000s, mid 2000s, Ocean County, Monmouth County, and other areas of New Jersey start experiencing higher numbers of opiates. Oh my God, this is an opiate epidemic now. Wow, what a difference. Criminalization 20 years ago, and now it's an epidemic, which I agree with the term epidemic. It's an epidemic now, and it was an epidemic 30 and 40 years ago. But now, who is primarily being affected now versus before? So, now we have to do something. So, race in mental health is extremely important to acknowledge. Now, a school curriculum tends to minimize a lot the impact of racial minorities. to the fact that it's like, how many people actually will dare to teach about all men were created equal, but then this is the other side of the story? No, we don't talk about this. It's so funny. Like, this morning I was having that conversation with my son before we were having breakfast, and he said, "Yeah, nobody teach that." But he knows that because we like to travel and actually go to sites and see information. But then again, racial profiling is real. How many of you, as you were learning how to drive and get your first car, your mom or your dad sees you to the side and told you, when you get pulled over by a police officer, the first thing that you do is keep your hands on the wheel the entire time, and you say, yes sir, the entire time, and you don't move until they ask you to move? Did your parents told you that? Yeah. So my parents told me that many times. My grandma told me that many times, and my son is still very little, but I keep reminding him that. Why? Because yeah, black people can get killed in an encounter with a police officer if it's not the right police officer. And it's a reality. So how is like every time that I'm driving for certain neighborhoods, I have to be over vigilant. Even if I'm driving on my own neighborhood, I have to be like over vigilant. So why? Racial profiling is real and close associated with our mental health. If it's black was white, and white was black. Yeah. What is it? We actually change our perspective and try to look things at a different from a different perspective. Type of racism. So racism is really like an abrupt term describing combination of race, power without power differential, systematic and structural racism. And again, there was a very interesting documentary during the pandemic regarding the trial of the people that were accused of killing Malcolm X. Very interesting and fascinating documentary that pretty much is like two men spent most of their life in prison for a crime that they didn't commit, used to cover up who was the real killer. Very interesting, but it's systematic racism actually exists and reinforced, and it's really hard to dismantle. So, civil service, the idea of civil service is to create like every equal for everybody to actually achieve. And I was part of the civil service in New Jersey, and I was very blessed to actually move through the civil service. But the reality is there are very isolated cases that you really move that easily through the civil service. I have to say, I was blessed with having access to a good education and wonderful professors that actually navigating civil service test was kind of easy. But the reality is many of the state agencies through the civil service, you will see which ones are which races are the ones that actually hold more power through the civil service as well. So systematic racism, even when we don't want to admit it, is still there. Interpersonal racism happens between individual people when individual people believe or prejudice become action toward others. So for example, you know that we don't go to this neighborhood because there are some people in the neighborhood. Or for example, Jew people. Or for example, let's create an empowerment group used to deal with disparities within an organization, and then you only send the email to the racial minority. So you want to make a change and kind of like preach to the choir. So who you really need to send the email? But again, our interpersonal racism gets connected in many ways. Or like, for example, like every time that a black man gets murdered in America by an institution, is, yo, you see, what is it? What are your thoughts about it? Why are you asking me? Why do I need to have a thought about it? Why do you ask your neighbor? Why do you ask your spouse? What are your thoughts about it? So I love Al Sharpton,
but I always said, can you shut up and let other people talk? Because again, like, why the minority person in the room always has to be the one to speak about it? Why you don't ask the uncomfortable question to somebody else?
Mm-hmm. So, and that's getting an idea about like these types of racism, and there is more. Institutional racism, schools, media. Muhammad Ali back on the day, I don't know how many of you knows about Muhammad Ali. So he was so great, and there was an interview once where he said, and my mom, I was a very curious child, and I was telling my mom why everything that is black actually has a negative connotation. The black sheep of the family, and everything regarding with a color. So very interesting, but again, institutional racism happens. How the media portray. Again, like you can even see like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and you see like, well, Kanye West is a very particular individual, but he deserves respect as well, like everybody else. But again, the portrait of the black man, even in Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and not use him, but again, is like keeping that idea, and the people that also buy into this idea to participate. Internalized racism. When racism and white supremacy affect the minds of the black people, indigenous people, people of color, to the point that they believe that they are inferior because of their own race. Back a couple of centuries ago, in Argentina, one of my favorite countries in the world. Don't cry for me, Argentina. Very beautiful movie with for Evita Peron. Madonna did such an amazing job. And when I went to Argentina, many years ago, I was fascinated by the fact that people were in shock to see my family and me walking around. Because back then it was very hard to see black people in Argentina. So people were nice, people were taking pictures. At one point was also I was getting uncomfortable, like other kids kind of like getting close to you, kind of like to see, to touch your skin and seeing if you will actually faint. So, but again, I was very curious, like Argentina at one point was part of the Spanish Empire. In every part of the Spanish Empire, there were black people that were brought enslaved from Africa. What happened to Argentina's slaves? And me being me, I started doing my research. There was a doctrine called the Sarmiento Doctrine in Argentina that was pretty much this belief. The whiter Argentina can get, the more prosperity we will bring to the country. So they had a systematic plan to eliminate first the black community and then the indigenous community. They were not as successful with the indigenous, but with the black, it was pretty easy. They created a conflict with Paraguay and sent a lot of them male Afro-Argentinians to war without the proper equipment, and they got killed. It was a genocide that is not really taught in Argentinian history. But when you do your research, you see what happened. So again, this systematic racism has happened all over. And again, like when during the pandemic, somebody was saying, well, black people are not really like going to get in the shots. What's happening with this? And I said, wow, that means that we don't remember history. How many times black people were actually tricked into getting into this medical treatment, and there was history of women actually getting like sterilization without their consent.
Syphilis, polio.
Exactly, so many other things. So again, generational trauma is real. So why you want a specific group to actually say, oh yeah, hello, like, yeah, let me do it.
That was 50 years ago.
50 years ago.
And it's still people of color in hospitals now don't get correct treatment when they listen to.
I can guarantee if any of us will go for the same reason to the hospital, most of you were given the options of painkillers and many things. For me to get a painkiller at the hospital, I will have to actually beg. Why? Because it's a stereotype. The black or darker person or brown person in the room won't be able to take this out because they will hook up to the prescribed medication very easy.
I've only been given narcotics one time in my whole entire life. Even when I was septic in the hospital dying.
So it's a reality. Reverse racism also exists. Well, and it's very real, and actually carry like a lot of because again, considering invalid because racism is a force that depends the presence of differential power. But the reality is reverse racism is pretty real. Oppression pretty much is the use of power to dominate over others. Racial trauma, traumatization, the result of experience of many forms of racism. Racial trauma is real. ACEs score, remember, like when we do going over, like, have you been victim of trauma? Yeah. Racial trauma is quite real. I have a good friend of mine that was educating on the South for one part of her life, and she was telling me the other day how once a year the school district will take you to the plantation where the slaves used to live, and everything has remained the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that friend told me that, and I went online and I checked to the pictures, and everything. It was even worse to see the pictures than actually what I was hearing from that good friend. Racism and hate and racism. Yeah. How real. And when we see the youth and how racism impacts the youth, and no, well, this generation is a whole different generation, like we're not going by this.
Mm-hmm.
Racism and mental health services, pretty much. Youth African American males and even females, especially the females, get misdiagnosed with schizophrenia. And this idea of another emotional black person in the room. Even last year, we had a client like coming into the building, African American client. Oh, this client, she has schizophrenia. And pretty much what happened to that client was, at one point, she had a urinary tract infection. And with a urinary tract infection, some of the symptoms, sometimes depending on the person, may look for that specific, she was experiencing schizophrenia. Oh, we're so concerned this client won't be able to go to college or anything. Matter of fact, the client is actually in college right now, continuing with her treatment and doing totally well.
Living on campus.
Living on campus. But again, was diagnosed, and thank God that person is no longer in the school, but was coming here with a label of schizophrenia. So, but again, also like if you're black, you're Latino, you're brown skin, your chances to actually get suspended from school are like quicker. So let's see, if I was doing my education in this country, which I never went to high school in this country, and I only went to 2 types of high school, school overall, military schools and Catholic schools, and I was living in both of the schools. Like I will live there like 24/7. How many times I will actually fight there? A lot. But the reality, how many times I was suspended? Maybe once. If that was the case in America, I wouldn't ever complete my education. Because that would be the stigma like, wow, this kid is a troublemaker. And maybe I was, but there was a facilitating adult that actually continued working with me. Racism and individual mental health. Depression is commonly reported condition across BIPOC community. Additional trauma can increase the risk for meeting the criteria for PTSD. So when we talk about PTSD is real. So how many people in this room knows the hood? Yeah. What is the idea of the hood? How the idea of the hood actually became the hood?
It was labeled.
It was actually created systemically.
Mm-hmm.
But then the identity of the hood has been embraced, and I represent my hood. And why I say this? Because that has been a belief that was made.
It's
So-
actually more of a sense of community where
Mhm.
everybody has everybody's back.
Exactly. Lyndon B. Johnson and his mega housing project. Wow. How far from there? I mean, it has been very tough to be Lyndon B. Johnson.
Hasn't even been 100 years.
Exactly. But again, Kennedy assassination, Martin Luther King assassination, Malcolm X assassination, and there were many more that didn't even made it to the documentary because of who was in the position of powers. But again, it must have been like really tough to be him back then. But at the same time, he also did a lot for social justice in many areas and signing legislations and all this. But again, why we had like such a massive construction of affordable housing back then, and nobody else since then has even got near to that effort? With the resources, we may have ended already like the housing problem in America a long time ago. Wow. Yes, I was not educated in high school in this country, but reading American history has been like very interesting because American history kind of summarizes a lot of the history from all the eras of the world. So, and again, discrimination is something that typically occurs and frequently as a result creates a sustained level of stress hormones in those that are most likely experiencing discrimination. Stress hormones are real. So there is a very interesting movie that was nominated to the Oscars like maybe like 10 years ago, and it's called and it's again, it goes over a lot of the sorrows, the experience that the mom may be feeling get transmitted to their child through the breastfeeding. And there was a whole movie that was made about it. Well, my favorite Peruvian actress was in that movie. And again, that stress is real. That stress hormone. So when you see like why African Americans have like a higher rate for high blood pressure and diabetes and heart diseases, yeah, it's not just it's the genetic or it's the genetic. There are also like other factors, and trauma is one of those. Okay, let's see if it works. It's a long story with my computers and all this. I know, I'm not supposed to be using my personal device. I know. So let's see if it works.
I gotta go fix my neck.
Mr. Frank Schaefer.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to our family. I'm by I raised Janice, and looking at you, I know I raised her right. Those are all the two sisters. Ah, yes. Cute, and cute. The dangerous combination. Why don't you come in? Make yourself comfortable? Come on.
Your little woman will be down any minute. Great. Thanks a lot, buddy. Thanks. Hey, my brother, you gonna let her tip him like that? Man, what does she do when y'all eat out?
Everybody, this is Frank. Frank, this is everybody. Come on, honey. I'll show you to your room.
Excuse me, but what happened to the little lady y'all promised me?
Here's $5. Go find your own.
She went when Janice described him, she didn't mention that he was tall. Not that I have any problem with people who are tall.
My cousin used to date a girl who was tall. Heck, the boys go to a predominantly tall school.
Am I alone in this, or didn't none of y'all notice he was white?
I love Will.
What the hell is wrong with Janice?
I'm sorry, did I say white? I meant tall.
He didn't seem that tall to me. It's not what my sister
Hillary.
married, that man.
And Jay seems so happy. Doesn't she? Hey, and that's what we want for her. Isn't it? Happy, happy, happy.
Fine, this is her decision. Let Janice do what she wants to do. Or she can do it without us. Come on, Will.
Hey, wait, Mom, hold up. Wait, I'm the best man.
Not anymore, you're not. I said, come on.
She breastfed me.
Only Will Smith.
It's evil. I'm not evil. Just
Again, different perspective, right? And that's exactly what happens where we were taught by generations and generations, we don't talk about our race. So it's not just hard for one race not to talk about race, because we were told like stay away from the conversation. And yes, like this fellow, like nobody was addressing the fact like he's white, he's tall. So how many times in our own context we may say, oh, it's a good guy. Oh, has an interesting hair. But not addressing actually the race, because we were told we don't mention race. We were told like we don't acknowledge race. So when we say like I see no race, you're not doing any favor to anyone. Pretty much it's important. So if Will Smith had a profession in that family, yeah, it was a real family, I'm sure by now he will be a social worker, a clinician of some sort. Because if we think about our family, we may say in our family the things that nobody else will say. So keeping this now. And this was again, my training about race is about like it's a 4-hour training, so this was just a little preview, kind of like getting an idea like how race, and when we have our clients in IA from different racial backgrounds, it is important the acknowledgement and understanding when we're doing individual sessions, allow for them to elaborate on their family history, their heritage. When we're doing process, allow and create environment, welcoming environment to be able to have this conversation. Now, the conversation is not forced, but if we know that we see that the environment is conducive, we can have the conversation. So if there's one thing that our kids know like really well is they know how to smell bullshit from the beginning. So if we are biased, they will feel, even without saying a word, they will feel our bias. Never receptive. So, but there is more stigmas here. There is a stigma regarding like substance abuse. The stigma that people with substance abuse disorders is set of a negative attitude and stereotypes. They can create barriers to treatment and make these conditions worse. Although substance use disorders are chronic, treatable medical conditions, studies show that people often face discrimination. And again, for some of our folks in here, some people here that have worked in a mental health cohort with substance abuse program, you know the stigma, them versus us, and it's a reality. So it's not the same with I'm dealing with anxiety and depression and substance use. So why is so different? So, and again, we are not a current program. But this idea of we won't see substance abuse here will be like being realistic, because these days there is a lot of co-occurrence between substance abuse and mental health, or substance use, or experimentation and mental health. Shh, we don't talk about Bruno. Well, we're talking a lot about Bruno. Are we ready to continue talking about Bruno's? So how does stigma affect substance abuse treatment? Research demonstrates that stigma damages the health and the well-being of the people with substance abuse disorder, but also interfere with the quality of care they receive in clinical stigma. Stigma towards people with substance abuse disorder can be seen at all levels of care. It's highly estimated, the stigma preventing many people from getting the help they need. For example, two clinicians being concerned about a client disclosing early in the day before coming to program, I have two lines of cocaine and a Percocet. The parent coming and is, we are not going to getting no substance, no urine screening. We don't go through that. What happened with my confidentiality on my right? Oh, okay, I'm trying to protect your life by in the middle. But again, the family has been perpetuating also like that stigma, because the family is part of the society, that we are part of the same society. And again, fictional scenarios. While substance use disorder is one of the nation's biggest health problems, it's also like one that is perceived as a moral issue or criminal matter. Which one is America's biggest detox facility? Yeah, the jail. That's the biggest. Back on the day when I used to do like a treatment family team meetings at the county jails, it was always interesting seeing like the parents that I may have seen them before, but then once they had like 30 days in jail, totally different. Now, jails usually spend a lot of money in which kind of care? Dental care. Because once you're not under the influence of anything, many of your dental problems start like becoming like so chronic that the fellow inmate won't be able to sleep with the pain at night. You know, as a criminal justice and undergrad major and doing my time at one point in my life, I wanted to be a correction facility manager. But then something changed, I don't know why. But it's fascinating how America has created for us. Trauma-informed care. Pretty much trauma-informed care recognizes the traumatic experience, terrified, overwhelmed, and violated of the individual. Our main purpose here is to restore a sense of safety, power, and worth. To restore a sense of power, safety, power, and worth. As a clinicians, installing hope is something that we work really hard to install hope. The foundation for trauma-informed care, commitment to trauma awareness, understanding the impact of historical trauma and oppression. Agencies demonstrate trauma-informed care and policies, procedures, practice, create safe context, physical safety, truthworthiness, clear and consistent boundaries, transparency, predictability, and choice. So like for example, what would be if you enter to this building and for example, there was no pride flags at all. And I'm a client that identifies as queer and I walk into the space. Will I feel like this is totally safe for me?
No. You wouldn't know.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Now, what will happen if I'm a staff here and I'm coming for my interview and I'm trying to fill this, and now I don't see anything that I can feel kind of like identify, or even like a little sign in one office or something. So create a safe space is physical, but also like our policies and protocol. We can have like as many flags, as many like Black Lives Matter signs or affirmative signs. But if our policies as a mental health organization don't reflect this, we are wasting lots of time. Like for example, like if our human resources don't have like a clear policy saying, for example, like oh, what is it, the safe space definition? So that's why we are agents of change as a clinical staff. Power to restore power through choice, empowerment, strength perspective, and skill building. Restore power. I know what is best for me, and you know you shouldn't be doing this and all this, but we are in an IOP PHP setting. That's why our policies are clear. Yes, the doors to enter to the building, our doors are always closed, are locked. To leave the building, there is no lock. Any client can leave this building at any given time. Now, we will call the police if they leave without the parent being here. That's a different story. But they can leave the building. Nobody will restrain or put a hand on them. They will leave. That's fine. But again, they know that this is the case because we have clear policies and protocols regarding like the treatment is their choice. And they made the choice to come here and to be here in treatment. Building self-worth through relationships, respect, compassion, acceptance and non-judgment, mutuality, and collaboration. Wow, that takes like a lot of work. It gets like so easy to say it, but when we bring it to the reality. So the vital components of trauma-informed care: feeling comfortable in one's environment, understanding the power of choice, and feeling a sense of empowerment. Because if I don't feel a sense of empowerment, it's self-defeated. It's self-defeated. Now, considering working with the LGBTQ+ community, coming out as queer can cause tension in family, religious group, and other communities because of societal norms. In extreme cases, being perceived as not being normal, because again, who is the position in power? Who actually defines who is normal? The one that is in power. Going against the grain can be even turn violent with that idea of if I'm walking around with my significant other, holding hands in the wrong neighborhood, and without knowing, you have a bottle on your head, hitting your head. Yeah. Did I ask for that? No, no victim asked for anything. So on that idea, somebody said, well, you shouldn't be in the neighborhood to begin. Who said that? So a few considerations right there, but trust me, it's nothing fun like having a bottle like hitting your head. Nothing fun. Hate crimes can include physical, verbal, and sexual abuse. Discrimination can come in many forms. Many. Not just like an act, can be something even like unexplicit. A look can bring discrimination. A policy can bring discrimination. When we talk about bullying in the real life and online, that's real. One of my former friends, what was that? Was last week? The one that we have the ashes coming from Canada and everything was really dark. So one of my friends wrote, "This is happening because of the people that want the rainbow and all this, and now this is very ignorant and very long. Like all I hit was like, you know what? Non-reply, muted, and block the person. And I'm not even having the conversation because I'm entertaining. I hear like another story about the rainbow and over the same, maybe like 3 days apart, about somebody else was telling me an online experience as well, and this person actually using the rainbow as a religious sign, which, okay, that's fine. But why you want to impose this? So bullying is real, so real. But now, that friend that wrote that and think that was okay to share with everybody was somebody that I considered a dear friend. So it hurts like even double. Somebody that has eaten at my table and I eat at their table. So rejecting from family and close friends. How many times when you come out, you actually come out? Anyone?
You continue to come out, or it's a lifelong process.
Exactly. So for example, if I come out to Dana, okay, I came out to one person. The next day I come out to Yvonne, I'm already, it continues. And nobody has to be saying like, hello, broadcasting live, I'm coming out today. No, that's you. So, but it's a misconception that people have with this idea like, oh, what's the big deal coming out? Well, coming out is a big deal every single day. No, but there is nothing more undeserving than actually being forced to come out or to be singled out or to be put on the spot. And that's very close related to mental health. Why? Because that's a traumatic experience. It is. And again, being fired from an occupation. I know people that because they transition, they lost their employment. A great friend of mine, teacher in a school district in Pennsylvania for 18 years, she decided to transition and ended up losing her job. And there was no law that protect her about it.
That's sick.
Daily harassment, and then daily harassment is like it's like, oh yeah, JC is coming right now, like let's don't talk about this. That's a way of harassment. Or yeah, let's support Pride in June, but then I'm typing this negative stuff or chatting this negative stuff. There is different ways to harassment. Domestic violence, child abuse, LGBTQ plus kids in the foster cares in the system, they experience a different level of stigma. Protecting the children in care is extremely important. One of the most hardest cases of child abuse that I once encountered was actually a child that came out to her parents. Gender pronouns. Okay, once again, JC talking about the gender pronouns. We all know about the gender pronouns. So with the gender pronouns, there is a few interesting facts. Well, I was an English minor in college, and there may not be like grammatically correct. This is not an English class. This is about saving life. Pronouns actually have the power to save life. Cyberbullying, or actually physical bullying, has the power to take life away. Use of proper pronouns has the power to save life. So, she, her, hers, herself. Are you serious? Stay with me. She's speaking with me and listening to her. The backpack is hers. Wow, how beautiful. We even got an example of how to use the pronoun. So, if we're not sure, let's ask preferred pronouns. And again, if we're in a setting that we don't even have we are comfortable enough to be asking the pronouns, ask the person, what's your name? So if you're using my name, you don't have to focus so much on the pronouns. No, you will have to write my name multiple times instead of the pronouns. It will take longer. Using my name to have to write Juan Carlos Alexis de la Barrera y Mina said versus they say can make like a tremendous difference. But again, asking for the name can be great. What's your name? Now, there is a lot of passive aggression when we ask, what is your preferred name? There is passive aggressiveness within that also, like, what is your preferred name? So, what is your name? If we're doing an,
Same
yeah?
with pronouns.
Uh-huh.
Using the word preferred is kind of
Because it's not a
Right.
preference, it's a necessity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's
What-
extremely important. So, no client should go to this idea of having to be misgendered by their mental health providers. Now, with this being said, pronouns can change. Today I can say, I'm JC, my pronouns are he, him, they, them. Tomorrow I can say my pronouns are they, them.
And who knows, maybe next day I can say my pronouns are they, them, she, her. And the idea is for pronouns to be validated as the person is actually indicating what are their pronouns. And it's extremely important. He, him, they, them, the, here, her. And again, with this one has been like the newest addition to the newest addition to the table. And I see like Beth is like,
Neopronouns.
Can you elaborate on the neopronouns?
So I know Z, Zir mainly, but I don't know how to pronounce them. There's like XE, and then there's like another one that's just an X, and it's more for because obviously she, her, he, him are more traditional binary gender, and then a lot of people feel this, at least people I know personally, feel this like hesitancy with they, them because it's so politicized and people like to be like, well, that's not grammatically correct, so they use neopronouns now.
Yeah. Like for example, like there are some companies that when they send some advertisement, they will say instead of using Mr., Mrs. or Miss, they will say MX and the name of the person. Fine. So an MX is also like an option. Actually, that should be updated in some of the forms as an option as well.
How do you say those? Here.
That one's
Yeah.
Zir, or here, I
Here.
guess. I've never seen the one with the H, honestly, so.
No. I'm not only your gay friend. No, I'm not a robot. No, I'm not just afraid of sex. No, I'm not a trendy hairstyle. No, I'm not attracted to pants. No, I'm not just hasn't decided yet. No, I'm not trying to be special. No, I'm not glorified a pansexual. No, I'm not trying to stand out. Lots and lots of misconception when, oh, why this community needs to have a Pride Day? Why this person, because they're transitioning, they need to have like, they just want the attention. The reality is, it has been here all along. Nobody has to tell you yes all the time. I don't know. Being part of a different community doesn't mean that I'm just subject of a study. It doesn't mean that you can just have any judgment any given time. No. So enough is enough. So if you want to be supportive to anyone from the community, focus on the person. The hairstyle is like the first thing that somebody mentioned about yourself is, oh, I like your hair. Oh wow, that hair represents you like so well. How that sounds?
Weird.
Exactly. So when I say like, oh, I have a different hairstyle. Oh, okay, so you must be A, B, C, or D. Oh, I'm dressed in a certain way. Oh, you must be A, C, D. That's why I used to love Prince so much back on the day, when he will be my favorite singer for a long time, and he will appear wearing heels, the nice suit, and then his makeup was right on point. And he won't care about anything. He will just be himself and enjoy, perform, and everybody will love him. So, no means no, and unless the person give us permission to ask questions, or we ask permission to ask the question, making random statements is a no. Asking for consent is important.
Can you identify each flag? Just some of them I don't know.
So that will be for our second presentation, promise.
Okay.
It is coming. We have a few more minutes. Don't come out as gay. You don't come out as gay, lesbian, bisexual, asexual, pansexual, transgender, etc. You come out as yourself. There is a fixation for what is your label. So if I'm dating a man, also you're gay. Who said that I'm gay because I'm dating a man? Oh, but you're dating a man, and you're a man.
So you must be gay. When did I say that? And again, this idea, you may have non-binary people, pretty much like dating a cisgender male or female. Yeah, but you're non-binary. Yeah, and so what has to do with who I'm attracted to? So gender identity, gender expression, there is a lot of intersectionality, but they are not the same. But since we love to have a label for everything, and that may be why like Instagram is so famous, because put labels for everything. The other day we were having an interesting conversation in the shared space. When I got home, everything that I was getting on my was like so interesting and so related to the conversation. So I'm assuming that now everything will be regarding to race and pride and something in the intersection. But yes, the common experience is actually being yourself. Wow, remember this one? That was the one that our friend Giselle used to use for her presentation. And again, LGBTQIAAP. Wow, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, transsexual is actually outdated, totally outdated. So the only reason it's there is to remember that it's outdated, and you can get actually like you can get in a lot of trouble for using that terminology. So it is important. You can refer to the person as a transgender if the person wants to identify, because again, many of the transgender friends that I have or that I have worked with as well will say, I'm a male, I'm a female. So the word transgender is also like has a different connotation and can actually provide like a lot of harm. Queer is an umbrella. It's an umbrella for everybody else in the saying queer. Very safe to say I'm queer, but then you don't have to specify, and you don't have to specify. But I guess that I'm very safe to identify as queer if you're part of the community. Now, again, there are many intersections. Questioning, exploration, questioning is something that happens from the time that we are babies to the time that we may be having our last day on earth. Questioning can happen at any given time or happen in different times. Now, the idea of questioning is identity, expression, two separate things, and you can be questioning about your expression, you can be questioning about your identity, you can be questioning about your interest. Intersex, pretty much, and this is very serious because even though people don't really speak about intersex that much, it's a huge percentage of the population where intersex is actually present. And an individual whose sexual anatomy, chromosomes, do not fit with the traditional makers of male or female. It's very real and it's more frequent than what we actually realize. So when we see a client in front of in our office, don't assume, but allow the client to be the one sharing their story. And how the client will be able to share if we create the safe space for them. An ally, yeah, many come in, many allies. I say ally and then you just walk into the room. It was kind of like you did your cape, and again, an ally, typically a non-queer person who supports and advocates for the queer community, an individual within the LGBTQ community as well, can be an ally. So there are many levels to be an ally, but pretty much an ally, I prefer to say a safe person. Asexual is also part of the categories as well, and pansexual. And again, we can continue because we have also like demisexual, we have like many categories, and it's important to understand human sexuality and human expression is extremely diverse. LGBTQ plus trauma-informed care. Safety, truthworthiness and transparency, peer support,
and collaboration and mutuality. Fundamental. Demonstrate a proactive, affirming stance to honor and celebrate sexual and gender diversity through affirming forms, language, visual signs, and LGBTQ plus competent staff. Because it's not a, and again, you may see it as a program, we don't advertise our program as an LGBTQ plus inclusive because we don't need to. And sometimes as we try to have like just a specific program, this can lead also into segregation. And segregation in America, we know like as one of the results, equal but separate, no. There is a space for everybody, and we are a clear example. We share the space so well. Trustworthiness and transparency, listening openly and own mistakes. Create opportunities for clients to share about their experience and their identity, authentically affirm their experience. My come out experience doesn't have to be necessary somebody else come out experience the same. And it's important to acknowledge that process. Peer support, LGBTQ plus peer support group, pretty much is a mutual aid, processing similar experience, allows external validation and health challenges regarding negative self-belief or group belief or community belief. Collaboration and mutuality, individualized goals planning, respect the individual while coaching the client to explore alternative options and decision-making strategies on the path to self-acceptance. So if I'm a youth that I'm discovering myself as being queer, but then I don't have a facilitating adult, a trustworthy adult that can actually help in the process, I will turn to my phone. My phone will have answer for me, but sometimes, or many times, the most unhealthy answers. That's why we have a lot of our kids that right now are thinking that through pornography, they think, oh, this is how I need to live my sexuality. And sex and sexuality are not the same thing. Building on protective factors. And again, this part of the training is a training that is actually 6-hour training. So it's just like a very synthesis, so we're getting like a comprehensive version. And again, empowerment, voice, and choice. Create the opportunity for the LGBTQ plus clients to take the lead in framing their own life, story, treatment-related needs. Cultural, historical, and gender issues. Make services culturally relevant and responsive to the unique feelings and treatment needs of transgender and gender diverse clients. This is not one model fits everybody, no. We need to be creative. We need to continue educating ourselves in the topic. Treatment options available, understanding that there is other barriers when you identify from LGBTQ plus, because again, you go to a group home or a residential program, you need to make sure that you go into the right residential program and it's the appropriate accommodation. And also making sure that if you go into a center, that a center can actually recognize sexual orientations and genders and know how to address the trauma that can be happening as well. Gender affirming care is trauma informed care. Gender affirming care is trauma informed care. Treatment or punishment? And that's a question kind of like to leave reflecting today. When treatment, what is it that we want to invest on? Treatment or punishment? We saw that the criminal justice system has not served the purpose of being a treatment. So if we move away from that model, how we can implement a trauma-informed care that is relevant not just for the dominant group, but for everybody else as well. Building coping skills, and again, I'm preaching to the choir with this one because like DBT is a great evidence-based approach that has shown and proved that can be very useful to help building the coping skills. And usually by now we have like plenty of time for questions, but again, we run like a few minutes late. But if anyone has a separate question, please, you know where to find me, and we can have like a longer conversation. So the race training is 6 hours. We have the also like LGBTQ plus training is also longer training. The substance abuse training is also like a longer training. And some of the licenses that are missing here is HIV stigma training. That is also like another training that I'm doing these days. So there is more added to here. So hopefully I will do like other refresher series and different topics, more specializing in different topics. But thank you so much for joining today. Rafaela has the attendance sheet. Please like sign from Rafaela.